Welcome to Simply Fun's online school of playology. Today, we're going to put our wizard hats on and fill our cauldrons with an amalgam of strong ingredients as we learn to play Simply Fun's Amalgam. You can play Amalgam with 2 to 4 players, aged 10 and up. Amalgam is a great game for developing strategy skills, as players collect as many of the same ingredient cards as they can, while at the same time considering what their opponents are collecting. Amalgam also improves planning skills. Players think ahead, trying to collect cards where the number on the card equals the number of spaces they want to move on their next turn. Players try to project the number of points they may earn for that card at the end of the game as well. To set up the game, first assess how many players will be mixing potions. For 3 to 4 players, use all 72 ingredient cards. If only 2 players are playing, remove 8 ingredient cards with the number labels that match the colors of the pawns not being used. Shuffle the ingredient cards, the 2 Wizard's Wild cards, the 6 orange spell cards, and the 4 pink spell cards together. Then place them face down in a stack. One by one, flip over the cards and place them in rows, creating a grid. Put the remaining cards in a draw pile. Make sure to place the corner cards in corners with their arrows pointing in a clockwise direction. Now give each player 1 of the 4 cauldron cards, 1 matching colored tower pawn, and 1 matching scorecard. Players will then place their tower pawns next to a corner card. Only 1 pawn is allowed per corner. The object of the game Amalgam is to fill your cauldron with as many of the same type of ingredient cards as you can. Your scorecard will tell you which cards will help you collect the most points. To begin the game, the first player moves their tower pawn clockwise around the outside of the grid, according to the number of spaces shown on the top card in their cauldron. If it's the first turn of the game, move the number of spaces on the cauldron. Afterwards, move the number of spaces on the top card of the cauldron. If the pawn stops in front of a row, choose 1 card from that row. The card may be an ingredient card, a spell card, or a Wizard's Wild card. Ingredient card. One of 18 different ingredients that indicate the number of moves available to the player, as well as detailing the number of points earned at the end of the game. Wizard's Wild. During gameplay, the 0 on these cards mean that the player will choose another card from the same row. During scoring, these wild cards can be used as any one ingredient. Ingredient cards go on top of your cauldron. Spell cards have different actions. Flee Ye Cauldron spell. This card forces other players to remove their top card from their cauldron. Sneak a Peek spell. This card allows the player to look at their own cards, which helps with strategy. Both of these orange spells are one-time use. Player's Choice spell. This card allows players to choose a card from anywhere on the grid instead of just on their own row. Corner spell. This card allows players to take another turn if caught on a corner. These 2 pink spells you play next to your cauldron. You rotate them when you use them, and when they reach 0, they go to the discard pile. Once the action on the card is completed, the turn is over, and the player replenishes the grid with a new Amalgam card from the draw pile. If the pawn stops next to a corner, the player may not draw a card, and their turn is over. Play continues in a clockwise direction, with players continuing to take turns even when the draw pile runs out. When any one row is empty, the game is over. All players look at the cards in their cauldrons and use their scorecards to calculate the points for each type of ingredient. Cauldron numbers are not counted. The player with the highest final score wins the game. For advanced gameplay, players may add the 10 recipe cards to the mix by randomly giving each player a recipe card of each color. Refer to the instructions for this variation. Get ready to make powerful potions with Simply Fun's Amalgam.